The Outer Banks of North Carolina are a thin strip of land which protrude into the Atlantic Ocean on the eastern seaboard of North Carolina, and they're a continuation of the same geological feature which goes up and down the eastern seaboard, basically from Washington, D.C. all the way down to Miami. There's something that has to do with tidal influence that creates these barrier islands, and the Outer Banks are close to the northernmost edge of that feature. On the western half of these barrier islands are typically brackish water, and then on the eastern shore is the Atlantic Ocean, and just nothing but wide open ocean on that side. So several points of interest on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. There's the Kitty Hawk National Monument, where the Wright brothers first flew, and also Hatteras, which is the turnaround point, where you either have to get on a ferry to continue south or turn around and come on back. So this should be fun. We have both a Tesla Model 3 and a Volvo XC40 Recharge. When given the choice, I always prefer to take the Volvo on road trips. There's a couple of reasons. A lot of people talk shade about the XC40 Recharge. Common problems that they refer to is the lack of range and the efficiency, because it's a pretty blocky vehicle. But there are some pluses in my mind that I prefer it for road trips. The cabin is very quiet. The door thickness is much more than the Tesla, and it just feels like a much more solid cabin. It makes for a very quiet interior. It's roomy. The drive feel is very smooth when you're going over bumps. So it has that luxury vehicle feel to it. And also, if you're driving an SUV that's an electric vehicle, do you really want a shape like a rifle slug, perfectly aerodynamic? For me, the answer is no. I like a little bit of style in my design. And so, yeah, the Volvo XC40 Recharge is blocky, but to me, that's not a big deterrent. This concept of trying to squeeze every ounce of efficiency out of the vehicle in order to make it most able to cover the most amount of miles on a charge, I think is kind of missing the point of what it's like to drive a car. We're fitting people inside of capsules instead of letting people drive around in vehicles. Kyle Connor, who runs the Spec Review YouTube channel, one time said that people don't drive cars on paper, they drive cars on roads. And I agree with that. The Volvo XC40 Recharge, although I have to admit that I'm subjective because I sunk expense into the thing, is a car that on paper doesn't look very good. And I'll put up, after this video here, a couple of slides showing the range at 100% charge. I charged up to 100% this morning, and I took quick cell phone pictures of what the range was with the environment on and the environment off. It goes up by about 10 miles when you turn the environment off, and if you use the moonroof and the heated seats, you can pretty much get away without the environment on moderate days. But I don't mind driving a car that doesn't look good on paper, as long as I'm comfortable in it. And I'm a 53-year-old man. I don't drive a pickup truck. Mid-size crossover SUV fits me just fine, and 240 miles of range is more than enough if you factor 60 miles per hour, which is a general rule of thumb of how much you can cross as you're clipping down the interstate. 3 hours is 180 miles. So if I got 240, that's even more than that. And by the third hour, I'm basically ready to stretch my legs anyway. So pulling in for a charging stop and stretching my legs, checking social media, catching up on email, things like that is perfectly fine. So that's what we'll be driving in today, Volvo XC40 Recharge. The DC fast charging network called EVgo has a lot of haters on the PlugShare app, and rightly so. Lots of times when you pull up to EVgo stations, they're broken, and the reason being is they were the first DC fast charging network, and their equipment has just simply aged out of their service life, and so they have a lot of broken chargers in the ground. But EVgo has been doing some things right, kind of quietly as of late. There's something called Autocharge Plus. They're the only DC fast charging network where you can take the cable, besides Tesla's supercharger, you can take the cable, plug it into your car, and it'll automatically start charging. The Volvo XC40 Recharge is one of those cars. So I can pull up to any EVgo station, plug in, and it'll automatically start charging for me. I don't need to swipe an RFID card. I do have this RFID card if needed, but ever since I signed up for Autocharge Plus, I haven't needed it. There is something called EVgo Renew, which just started this year, and I'm thinking they're using the federal funds in order to do this, but they're taking their old chargers out of the ground and they're replacing them with newer chargers, and building out bigger sites with 350 kilowatt DC fast chargers and a couple of 150 kilowatt DC fast chargers. And this EVgo Renew program, I've kind of scouted ahead, and there's 4 locations on this road trip that I'm going to stop at just to kind of scope them out. I'm not going to need charges at each one of the locations. I'll probably just plug in to charge and get a little bit of top off at each station. But really, I'm just kind of curious for my own interest what these new Renew stations are like. There is one in Charlotte. I've never really been to it, but there's 4 along this trip, and this is the first one. I'm at a Lowe's Food. There's another one at a Lowe's Food, so EVgo must partner with Lowe's Food for some reason, and allow the parking lot to be used for DC fast charging. Another thing that EVgo does well is, unlike Electrify America, which may only have 1 charger per city, EVgo targets a metropolitan area and puts in multiple locations within the city, and they're not geared towards people doing road trips on interstates. These are in grocery store parking lots, well off the interstate, in areas where people might be needing a DC fast charge as a result of living in a multi-tenant housing unit, like an apartment, townhome, condo, something like that. They don't have any level 2 charging for their electric vehicles at home. So EVgo has got a different approach to providing DC fast charging. Grocery stores are very common, and it makes sense. I mean, if I own an electric vehicle and I need a DC fast charge, I'm going to go to a grocery store where there's a DC fast charger in the parking lot, so I can top off as I get my weekly groceries. Another thing they do is recently they've changed to pay per kilowatt hour pricing. That didn't used to be the case. It was pay for an amount of time, which is unfair considering that certain electric vehicles charge faster than others. It didn't really matter because the EVgo stations generally only did 50 kilowatts. But anyway, regardless, and they do have a new pricing structure for membership. Their memberships go from 99 cents a month all the way up to $12.99 a month. The $12.99 a month one is called Max or something like that. And that's the one I signed up for before I started this trip, just because I knew I was going to be going to 4 DC fast chargers in EVgo on my way out, just to kind of check them out. And I'll probably stop at 1 or 2 of them on the way back also. I mean, they're kind of conveniently located. They're fast chargers, new chargers, and don't have to worry about them being broken because they've just recently been put in the ground. So we're going to be scoping out the EVgo Renew locations along my route. And as I said, there's 4 of them, and this is going to be the first one. I'm at the last of the 4 EVgo Renew stations that I had planned to come to, and kudos to EVgo, all 4 of them worked. I was able to charge with Autocharge Plus, meaning I just plugged in, didn't have to use an RFID card, an app, or anything in an Apple Wallet. Just plugged right in. All of them were working. All of them were busy. I wasn't the only one at any one of them. So they're obviously getting used within the communities and where they put them. So I'd say, all in all, a successful deployment out here in the Greensboro and Raleigh, North Carolina area for EVgo. There's a lot of these chargers around. I said there was 4 on my route. There's actually about 7 in the vicinity. I wasn't going to go to all of them. I just basically stuck to the ones that were basically on my route. And now on with the rest of the trip out in the sticks. There's no more EVgo. I'm going to be relying on other public charging infrastructure that's available in the eastern portion of North Carolina. Just got to finish charging up, and then we'll be on our way in just a moment. We're in the cafeteria of Nash General Hospital, which is the main trauma center for Nash County. Hospitals, for some reason, are good spots to charge on an EV road trip. They always have chargers for some reason. I don't know why, but it seems like every hospital has chargers. It's also nice, they're safe. They have cafeterias with good food at a reasonable price, and clean facilities, and a nice place to just kick back and relax for a little bit while your car charges. I was starting to get a little bit tired, so I'm going to have a sandwich, relax a little bit while the car gets some juice at the parking decks charge point station.